Welcome everyone to Warriors for Your Christ. I am your host, Damian Gibbs. Olin and Kier, I believe they're busy this weekend. They do a lot of ministry and busy with their church. So a lot of their weekends they put time aside to join us. So I hope they're safe. Hope they're enjoying where they're doing at this time. And they probably would most likely be back on next weekend. So I hope this find you guys in good health. Thank you for joining. Today we're gonna be discussing. It was put in the comments to talk about last week was the idea of predestination and what that means. So I'm gonna give you my my take on it, and and you can go look it up and go with it from there. So predestination is the idea that God predetermined things in our life and points that we are supposed to hit or things that we're supposed to do on our journey. And this actually hits a lot of people in the wrong way because people see it as if God has predetermined my life, then I have no free will as a human being, and that all the bad stuff that happens, that means God predestined that, all the challenges, all the good ups and downs, all that was predetermined by God. And because of that, that actually puts a lot of people off from Christianity because they believe that God predestined them to fail, to be poor, and that He's controlling their lives. He predestined things like them to get sick, their children to be dead, children, death of children, death of family members. And if God predestined that, a lot of people were like, why? How can you say He's a loving God if He is going to put us through such things, such terrible things? And I don't necessarily view it that way. Um, and I actually have a couple of scriptures. I'm not going to read them, of course, but I'm just going to briefly mention what it talks about. In Jeremiah 29:11, it says, I know the plans I have for you. It talks about God has a plan. He knows the plans He had for Jeremiah. He knew Jeremiah in the womb and all that good stuff. He formed them. And then it also says Isaiah. God said to Isaiah, I formed thee in the womb. I knew you before time. And then, and uh, I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna look it up. Give me 1 second. It actually mentions the word predestination. So let me pull it. Let me pull it up. I'm like I said once again. I'm not gonna read the scripture to you verbatim. I just want you to get a reference of where it come from. In Romans 8:29, it says, "For whom He did foreknew, He predestined to be conformed." There is talking about Christ. In Ephesians 1:5, it says, "Having predestined us into the adoptions of Christ." So here, you know, people always wonder and see it as a bad thing that God predestines. I don't see it as a bad thing because the Scripture says that God is our Father. So if you look at it as a point of Him being a father, a nurturer, He's not necessarily predestined for all the things that go wrong. The way I view it is that He's predestined us to accomplish some things. See that this way: parents do life savings, or they do savings to prepare for their child's education. So by the time they get of age and they go to college, there's funding there for them to go to college. You know, they are thinking beforehand because that's what predestined means. It means to see ahead, to see and look to the horizon. So God, stands out of time, but He can see in our time. He looks ahead in our time, way before us. Way before we even get here, and he thinks of things and establish things like, hey, at this point in their life, I want them to um, accomplish this. I want them to go to school. I want them to have a job. I want them to have a family. I want them to, come to Christ. I want them to go to college. He puts all these things in place that are good for us. But it's still up to us to determine if we wanted to hit those markers or accomplish those things. Just as a child get of age, even though their parents put money aside for them, that does not mean sorry for my camera, it froze. That does not mean the child has to go to college. It definitely doesn't mean that. It's still up to the child. Sorry. It's still up to the child to determine whether they want to go to college, even though the parents planned ahead of time for them to go. And that's the same way it is, with being a Christian. So God doesn't necessarily put the bad things in place for us. He doesn't put death in our life. He doesn't put failures and losing your house, all that. No, he's focusing on things that's going to better you. And it's up to us to make the decisions whether we accomplish those things. Yes, he can put something way ahead of you, like, oh, I want them to own their own business. And if they get on the right path and do the right things, they will accomplish that. It will be set. It's there for you to take up. But we still have to walk the walk. We still have to walk it out. Just as a child, even though their parents set money aside for them for college, it's still up to them to go through school and actually want to go to college. And if they decide to go to college, the funding is there for them and they can just take it up and they can just go. No problem. God is our Father. He does the exact same thing for us. He puts stuff in our path, into our life that we can achieve. But it's up to us to take it. And we see this with the Israelites, the Hebrews. God said to Abraham, I'm going to make your people a great nation. They're gonna be mighty, they're gonna be wealthy, they're gonna have a land flowing with milk and honey. So God said that before the Israelites even came, before all the children of Abraham were brought forth. But the Israelites themselves still had to make it to the land, even though God said it was theirs already. And once they got there, they still had to fight for it. So God is saying, hey, I got these things for you. I'm predestined for you to accomplish these things. They are out there. They're in your life. You may come when you're 12 years old. Another may come when you're 21, and then 35, and so forth. All these different things He wants to accomplish in life. That's predestined. He's looking forward. He's looking forward into the future of our life and setting good things up. But it's still up to us to want to fight it and get it. He's not controlling our life. He's not making us do those things. But he never sets us up for failure. Because he said, I have plans for you, and these plans are to prosper you. Sorry, my camera always wants to act up when I get on here. So he said, I have plans for you. I'm predestined. Got things that I want to put in your life. And these things are to prosper you. They're to make your life better. So it's weird that people read this idea of predestination and want to start flipping out. Oh, God's controlling my life. I have, if He's predestined, that means, I don't have free will to do what I want in life. That doesn't make sense that you're taking it. It says everything He does is for the better. It's to prosper us. The Israelites, the Hebrews, they could have decided, what, I don't want to go to the promised land. They could have did that and went on their own merry way. Some could have went, others could have left. It was their choice if they wanted to do that. And it's the same thing with us in the Lord. So I'm gonna pull you. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna pull it up. That's for the most part. That's all I have to really say on that idea of predestination. So let me pull up comments for anyone that may be watching. Oh, good evening. Good evening. Yeah. So I don't think it's deeper than that. It's funny how the Lord can be saying something good for us, but as humans, we're so self-centered that we would take that and say that He's controlling our life and that we have no free will. Like I said, that's just my take on that. And the way I see it, having somebody plan something for you is not the same as controlling your life. We do it all the time. Hey, when you get off work, I have some, I got some money for you to come over and pick up. That's a future thing. It's not the now. The person's not at work. They're still working. But once they go to work, they can decide if they want to go over there and pick up the money from whomever. That's predestination. That's looking in the future, establishing something that is good, and then it's up to the person to decide to want to walk that walk to get there, to take that journey. God predestined for the Israelites for the promised land. It was up to them whether they wanted to fight for that land. But God said that if you go and you fight and you take the journey, you will be victorious and you win. You'll win. That's already determined, but you have to be willing to fight. So, if anyone have any questions on this topic or any statements, post those below, and I will, read them. I will get back to them. But that was a question from last week. Someone said to talk about predestination, and to me, it's very clear when it comes to scripture. It doesn't say anything. He does never say anything about controlling your life or taking away your free will. We have free will. I mean that if we didn't have free will, Adam wouldn't have eight of the tree of good and evil. He wouldn't have. He has free will. Humans have free will. We have the ability to choose whether we want to do something that's good or we want to do something that's bad. So I'm gonna end with that. I'm not sure how long this podcast is going to be, but the next thing that I wanted to discuss was the idea of cheating in relationships. So this just came up today. Um, the person I saw a post online, and then that post made me go, made me think back like, what, that's so weird that somebody would think that way. So if that individual reads this or watch this podcast, I'm not coming at you. I'm not saying anything. It's just a topic that you decided to put on Facebook, and I'm just going to discuss it. So the topic said, why do men, it was something like, why do men always cheat? Or every man that I find, or every man that I date cheats. And and to me, when I see stuff like that, it just made me think like, not all men are cheaters. I'm not saying that's what she was saying. She clearly said, why do men that I date? I think that's what she said. Always cheat. I mean, and it's sad that this is occurring to her, because I do believe there are good men out there that are definitely faithful to their wives, and I know some. Do I know the life of every individual? No, but you can see um, people's lives when they're in front of you, and based on how they're taught, because you can't hide your lifestyle. Your words give up what you're doing. Your words give up what is in your heart. But I just wanted to say, when it comes to dating, yes, we cannot control people's lives. We cannot control our spouses. We cannot control, our boyfriend or girlfriend. We can't do that. That is impossible. And if you are doing that, I would say stop, because we shouldn't be ruling over other people in that way. But we must be wise in who we choose, or wise in how and what we see in the person's lifestyle. Yeah, somebody can be married, or somebody can be in a relationship 15, 20 years, and then they decide they want to go off and cheat on their spouse or their girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. But I always believe, and I don't think I can be convinced otherwise, that you should be able to see signs in the relationship before that happens, before the cheating occurs. Because people normally cheat because they're not getting something that is in their relationship. And that's when talking comes about. when you see that, let the person, your partner, know that you see something different in their life, that their body language, whether they are communicative, whether they are talking, or are they off to themselves more. These are usually signs that something is not right in your spouse. And if that goes on long enough, that can lead to cheating. Also, we also need to be wise and look at, if you're dating someone and that person is not revealing a lot about themselves. You know, they keep a lot of stuff bottled up. They hide stuff from you, or you say stuff like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that right now. I told you I don't want to talk about that. Oh, I don't want to talk about my past." You know, if you're in a relationship, that stuff should be put out there. You know, and if you hide that means that you're trying to hide something from your spouse. So, do men all men cheat? No, absolutely not. Are there some men that cheat? Yes. Just as there's some women that cheat. And there are a lot of women that don't cheat, that are faithful. But the point is, we have to see what that person's like. We have to be watchful of them, especially when you're first dating. I mean, if you're dating someone and you find yourself sleeping with that individual in a couple days, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, oh, this is the person we're gonna be together for a long time. Especially a man. If I'm not saying that somebody can't meet someone and they sleep together and their whole relationship would be foil and that people don't get married or things like that. I'm just saying that if if somebody sleep with each other that same night they met or within a few days of they met, where's the trust being built up? Where's the dialogue that's happening between the two before that occurs? Because once that happens, the person in their mind, they got what they want. They don't have to stay in the relationship because they kind of got what they want. But if you hold off on the sexual activity and get to know the person before that occurs, you can get to see what type of individual they were. I know I was in a couple of relationships, and I was talking to my wife earlier about this. That you know, we before we became even active in it. This is before marriage. Before we even became active, sexually. You know, I think a couple months went by or something like that, and during that time, we literally got to know each other, just talking back and forth. And that was not on our. I'm not saying that wasn't the thing that was driving the relationship. We were actually in a relationship because we really liked each other. We wanted to know each other. We liked spending time with each other. And that relationship, it lasted for a few years, you know. Um, but if you get in a relationship and the first thing that occurs is, you're sexually active with that person, you never know if that person was just that's all they wanted. That was their agenda, was just to sleep with you. But yeah, you can be with that person for a year, 2 years, whatever it may be. But in their mind, they already got what they wanted and they can bail at any time. In the same way they did with you, they can actually be still doing that with other people, meeting people and then, sleeping around. So you should always, in my opinion, hold off on the sexual activity, get to know the person. You know, are they hiding things? What's on their hearts? What their ambitions? What they want out of a relationship? And I think that alone will tell you where their heart is really at. Like I said, and if they're pushing if they're pushing sex, that's what's on their mind. That's what they want to do. Like that they rather have sex than to get to know you personally, male or female. Uh, like I said, these are just my opinions on the matter. But yeah, watch the person that's you're in a relationship with. Think about how fast you slept with that individual. Is that individual communicating their life to you? not just daily stuff, cooking and store and all that, like deep things, their hurts, their pains, their ambitions, like all that helps to build a strong relationship. And if you're in a relationship and you have not discussed that with an individual, think about it. If that person were to leave, if that person would go out and cheat, that means they wouldn't really in it. Their heart wasn't in that relationship. Because like I said, when your heart is in a relationship, you reveal the deeper things. And like I said, and it's just not about the sexuality, it's just not the closeness and contact, it's it's an emotional thing. And part of the emotion is, you know, talking, bringing that about. So definitely I feel sorry for the individual who posts that every time she finds a man or every time she's in a relationship, that man always cheats. We gotta think about where, first of all, you found the man or you found your spouse, male or female. Where did you find him? Of course, somebody can be a president and still cheat. You can be a doctor, you can be a pastor, like anybody can cheat. But you want to limit where, no, I'm not gonna say limit. What's the word? Choose carefully. You want to choose where you're finding your spouse at. If you find your spouse in the library, yeah, they still can cheat, but they also still may mean like they're intellectual. They're deep in thought. Um, so if you find your spouse at the club, or you find your spouse, standing on a corner, you find your spouse, at a bar. I mean, you got to think about it, or your partner. I'm not saying that can't happen, but where's that person's heart? Where did you find them? I do believe that's a big part of it. Um, and then, you know, what do they talk about? What's on their heart? If you're their girlfriend, if you're the wife, and your spouse is not, I know I keep coming back to this, and he's not telling you what's going on in his life. He don't. This doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going over here, I'm going over there. No, that doesn't matter. Like, but his heart, is he revealing stuff to you? Is he upfront about his life? And then also, if a man or your spouse, I'll just say spouse, schedule starts to get off than what they're used to, if they start, if you notice that they usually come home 5 o'clock every day, and all of a sudden that time starts to be 6 o'clock, then 7 o'clock, then 9 o'clock, and 10, like you have to ask, where are you going? Don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore the signs, because for a man, I would say most men, if they are going to cheat, it usually happens in steps. Usually, there's flirting, and then it's the thing, oh, do you want to hang out? And usually that probably go on for some time before the actual cheating part happens with, a sexual act with another person. So there are signs, and I believe many people ignore the signs that their spouse or their partner is about to start cheating or is cheating. And then when it finally happens, it's like, oh, why'd you do this to me? It's like they were showing signs. So, if we're wise and we catch that, maybe can help stop your spouse from cheating, or find out why they want to cheat. Why do they do that? Why do they desire to go out to be with another woman? Why they desire to go out to be with another man? And once again, it comes back to talking, or the spouse, if you're in a relationship and the person wants to be sexually active and the other person doesn't want to be sexually active, but it's been a super long time, especially if you're married, that may drive a person to want to cheat, because they want to fulfill that desire, that sexual act. And if you're holding out in the marriage, that will lead them, or that could be one of the causes to want to go out, because they're going to try to get it from somewhere. I believe, especially a man, of course, women too. So look at the signs that something is happening in a relationship. Like, I just don't believe that one day it just pops up and your partner decides to cheat on you or decides to cheat. There are signs way ahead of time. Their schedule has changed. Their way to interact with you has changed. How they talk to you, the way they treat you, like there are signs in that. And being part of that relationship, we have to be wise enough to see and to acknowledge, and then say something to your partner about it. Like something's off. You acting weird. Did I do something? Do I do something different? Why are you acting different? Why are you coming home later than usual? Ask those questions. Are they drinking more? Habits show what an individual goes through. If somebody has a lifestyle where their habits are always the same, that usually means that they are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't get the word out. Organized in their life. I'll use that. They're very organized in life if they're structured, But once their structure changes, that's a sign. So those were my two topics today. Predestination, and then like I said, I just randomly saw that post earlier about why do every person I date winds up cheating on me. You know. Also, when looking at cheating, look at yourself. You know, what is something that may be in you that may cause that person to cheat? We always think, oh, if that person cheat, that means they're doing something wrong. And a relationship is both ways. Is the person that cheated, and is also the person that we didn't know on. It's twofold in a relationship. That person had a reason why they cheated. Was it good? Was it bad? I can't say. But we also need to recognize and look at ourselves. That I do something that may have forced that person to go away? Like I said, in marriage, if someone's holding out sexually on their husband or wife, that's a big deal. And then it's easy for somebody else to come along to try to fulfill that need, and being that they want that need, and somebody is offering it with no chains attached to it, there's a chance that that person can take it. Especially if they weak spirited, and and there's no strength to hold it back. Or even more, that person, they find that person really attractive, because there's a correlation that when people do cheat, they normally cheat with somebody who looks just like their spouse. I saw that in a couple instances, and I saw some videos regarding that as well. They find somebody who, even if they either look like their spouse at the present time, or they look like their spouse when they were younger or when they first got together. So all those things play a role, but we must look at the signs that are happening before your spouse cheating. Look at yourself. Am I doing something that may be pushing my partner or my spouse, away from me? Because we're not perfect. We're definitely not. And if you are, you ask your spouse, what am I doing wrong? How can I mend this? If you want the relationship to work. If you think you're perfect, you're doing nothing wrong, it's a problem right there. And that could be the very reason why your partner is leaving, because in your mind you're perfect and you're doing everything right. Uh, so I'm not going to drag on with this. Going on 30 minutes now. Uh, Please, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, or if you have any topics that you would like me to discuss, I wish my camera was working, the correct camera, because I don't like this camera. But if there's something you would like me to discuss, or us to discuss on this panel on Words for Christ, like I say, it can be something regarding the world. It can be something regarding the church, marriages, ideologies, teachings, doctrines. If you have anything, uh, put them in the comments, post it, and we would do our best to get back to it or to discuss them. I think next week we are discussing um, the idea of pre-evangelism. We're going to have somebody on a podcast. Her name is Miss Brenda. We're going to have her on. She's going to tell us what pre-evangelism is, and then the panel is going to discuss that amongst ourselves, whether we think it's a good thing. We agree with it. Is it a bad thing? Like I said, we're gonna give our opinions. Once again, this podcast is not about beating anyone down. It's about just sharing ideas, sharing dialogue, and that's how we get through in this world. We talk through problems. We talk through solutions. There's nothing wrong with believing that you are right, but at the same time, don't beat someone down who may be or who may think different than you. Um, Let me see. I think I got a comment here. Oh, no, that's not a comment. And so that's next Sunday. We're gonna be talking about pre-evangelism, and then if you guys post a topic, we may throw that in there as well. So we'll be here again next week at 6 p.m. I'm your host, Damian Gibbs. This is Warriors for Christ. We love you and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.